Sitting here sort of informally in my living room. If you see that it's a little bit dark here, we had a power outage a short while ago. Actually, there was a tornado watch in our area here in Northeast Ohio. It seems to have passed already, but the power is still out, so we don't know whether it's gonna when it's gonna come on. But I hope it'll come on pretty soon. You remember that I had mentioned at the beginning of the setting up of my channel that in addition to having performances on it, I was going to also, talk a little bit about this or that related to my experiences as a pianist and travels and so on, things which I think are kind of interesting or different or maybe slightly unique, So this is what I'm going to want to do now, just to mention a few things. But before I do that, I want to first of all thank all of you for watching this channel. As you know, it's the majority of things are performances of mine, and they are on the main video section, and the number of subscribers keeps increasing, which I'm very pleased about. This channel's been around, for 4 months or so. As of today, the last time I checked, there's already 409 subscribers. I'm very pleased about that, and things are growing bit by bit, and I hope that this will continue. And of course, my performances, the various ones, have quite a lot of views and good comments, which I'm appreciative, so thank you for doing that. I also want to mention that because most of my performances are in the main video section, I want to also remind you that I have a number of performances that are on the playlist section. Now, these were performances which were done years ago, and they were already on YouTube. They were recorded by others. And so the only way that I could get this on the channel was to have it in the playlist.
But it's you performing.
It's me performing, but and a couple of those performances go back into the 1980s. There are a couple that are maybe 15 years ago or whatever. But yes, that's right. And the ones that are there contain some of the most difficult things that have been written for the piano, which are extremely seldom played today because most pianists just avoid them, and and they just aren't done. Good number of them are in the category of paraphrases and transcriptions, which were very popular in the late 19th century, early 20th century, what I call the golden age of virtuosity. I've always liked to play those kinds of pieces, but the vast majority of pianists just don't do them. They just shy away because of the difficulties, and it takes a certain panache to play some of that stuff. And the pianists of the old days did that because it was popular in those years. So what's on there, just to run through it very, very briefly, because only a couple of things. There's Vladimir Horowitz's transcription of Liszt's 15th Hungarian Rhapsody. That has a very well-known theme, Hungarian theme called the Rákóczi March. Other composers have used it, like the French composer Hector Berlioz. I think you'll find that as a very familiar theme. Lots of sonority because that's so typical of Horowitz's transcription. And that's from a recital that was done, maybe 15 years ago at a stately home in Britain, in West Sussex, called St. Mary Bramber. Then there is another one which has two pieces on it. It has Chanson de Bohème by 19th century composer named Maurice Moszkowski, a very famous theme from Bizet's Opera Carmen, but it's the same theme that is the one that Horowitz used in a Carmen Fantasy, which you already have heard because it already is on my regular video section. In fact, Horowitz used it as a model, this Moszkowski as a model for the one that he created. So that's on that, but it's followed by Horowitz's, I think, most spectacular transcription, which he made, which is that of John Philip Sousa's The Stars and Stripes Forever, which he created in 1944, played it through the rest of that decade into the early 50s, and he played it also at a big outdoor rally in 1944 in Central Park in front of 100,000 people. It was a special event which the then mayor of New York, Fiorello LaGuardia, had set up. It was called I Am an American Day. Remember, this was during World War II years and so on. So that is also on it. It's in an arrangement by Malaysian pianist Gan Wiming. So those two are together. And that's from a concert done, I think it was also about 15, maybe a little less than 15 years ago, also in Britain, at Tregenna Castle in St. Ives in Cornwall. Then another one is another extremely spectacular and kind of paraphrase of the kind that, as I said, you don't hear today. Concert arabesques on themes from Johann Strauss's On the Beautiful Blue Danube, which is the Blue Danube Waltz, by a Polish pianist and composer named Andrzej Schulz-Effler. It was written around 1905. This was from a concert, one of my faculty concerts, actually, here at my now former university here, Youngstown State University here in Youngstown, Ohio, Dana School of Music. This was 1983. So it was in that concert, and I'm wearing tails there, which I very seldom do. And boy, I'm telling you, I wish I had the hair now that I had then, It just was what it was, and it is what it is now, Yeah. So that's
right, yes.
And then the other thing that's on the playlist is actually a concerto, me playing with orchestra. A big concerto, also one of the most challenging in the repertoire. Brahms's Concerto No. 2 in B-flat, Opus 83. He wrote 2 piano concertos. They're both massive pieces. Really, they are symphonies for piano and orchestra, because even though they're very big challenges, both musically and technically, the parts are so integrated that it's like a gigantic chamber music situation, and they're very expansive. And this second concerto is one of the longest ones, about 45 minutes long. It's in 4 movements. Now, this was also done around, I think, about 1983. Now, in those days, I think YouTube was still, relatively new. You couldn't put things of any length on and in one go, because the things that that you've heard already in the regular video section, no matter what the length is, it's all there as one unit. But in those days, there were shorter units. So here I just said that this concerto is about 45 minutes long, 4 movements. Well, as it is, if you hear and see it, you'll see that the first movement is actually in 2 sections. It kind of stops halfway, and then there's another video which continues. Then the second, third, and fourth movement each are in one area. But it couldn't be done so that the whole concerto was in one go. It had to be divided. That was then, but now it's all different. So anyways, I've just described the things that are in the playlist section, and I invite you to listen to those also, because the majority of things and the ones that you'll continue to hear will be in the regular video section. But I don't want you to neglect them or not know that they're there.
Miss out.
That what?
Miss out.
Miss out on them, So have a listen to those also. Okay. So having said that, I just want to mention a couple of things about a couple of experiences that I had. Some a little bit humorous, some a little bit different, and one of these was a thing I had on an Australian tour about. It wasn't that long ago. It was maybe 7 years ago or something like that. One of the recitals I had in Western Australia, it's a town called Hopetown. That's spelled Hope, Hopetoun, not W, Hopetown. It's way down in the southwest corner of Western Australia, And it was a recital played on an electronic piano, which is fine because I can play on pianos of any kind as long as they function. And an electronic piano is fine. It has all the keys, it has a pedal. And that was the thing. And the chair for that particular performance was just a regular chair. I remember it had kind of cross beams on the bottom, sort of wooden, and a regular chair, not a standard piano bench or anything like that. And so, as what happened was that on the very last note of the very last piece that I played, I think I played as an encore, and that was the Manuel de Falla Ritual Fire Dance, which you already can hear and have heard most likely in my regular video section. On the very last note, the leg collapsed on that chair, and I went right as it landed on my ass on the floor like that. The audience was absolutely horrified. They thought that I was hurt and so on. And I thought, real quickly, I bounced up and said, but I planned this. They all applauded, and it was all just titter, and everything like that. But it was that they were so embarrassed, that the leg of that chair collapsed, but it did. And I went boom, right like that, right on my ass on the floor. But it was the very last note of the last encore that I played. That would happen in Hopetown, Western Australia, about 7 years ago or something like that, which reminded me of a kind of a similar thing. But it was when I was in my studio here at the Dana School of Music here at Youngstown State. I was running through a Rachmaninoff Etude Tableau. And there it had just a wooden bench, on the piano that was in my studio, the Steinway, that was the standard equipment in the studio. And I just remember I was only about 10 seconds from the end of the piece. I was running through it, and I felt the leg of the bench wobbling, and then I felt it wobbling a little more. So I sped up a little bit. I sped up the tempo to try to see if I could finish it before something happened, and I did. And the moment I finished that last note, that bench collapsed, and I jumped up, and there it was, But I just made it in time. It was like a real photo finish. So sometimes, the legs of a bench or a chair can, something can go like that. Well, you do what you got to do. I always look at a situation, just handle the situation as it can, have humor about it if you want. And and just take it from there. Another thing which comes to mind from a long ago performance that occurred in Miami, in Florida, like that, was at a club, and actually Suzanne was involved with me in that concert. She sang a couple things and so on.
I was doing, I think, Debussy.
Oh, what Debussy something? Yeah, that's right. Anyways, but telling you, when I saw what that piano they had, it was some clunky old upright, and one octave in the upper part, almost the whole, like 5 out of 7 or 8 notes just didn't play at all. It was just, the keys went down, but the strings were broken or something.
Yeah, I might as well have been singing Ives.
You could have, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, really, it was just unbelievable. Well, anyways, the local organizers said, when I said, well, wait a minute, I can't really do something with this. They said, well, if you're willing to kind of, pay for this, we'll get another piano to and bring it in. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I'll somehow manage on this, which I did. And I don't know whether they wouldn't have known the difference. Most of them, had no knowledge really of music. They were just there as an audience.
Yeah, and with my piece, you basically played the bass line.
Yeah, something like that. It was an unbelievable piano that even, when Suzanne and I talk about this sometimes, we remember that so well. But this was so long ago. I think it was in the 1970s or something. It was many, many years ago down there. So once in a while. But you said, like I said earlier, I'm very tolerant about pianos. I'm not a prima donna. I can play an anything. But, if keys stick or, pedal doesn't work, then I draw a line, because that really is not functional. But, as long as at least it's basically in tune, all the keys work, all the pedals work, I don't care if it's an upright, a grand, a spinet, electronic piano, but with weighted keys.
What about in England, that time you played?
Well, yeah, that was another thing. That's right. It was at some school function. It was in England or something, and I think it was a spinet piano, and there was a black key in the bass area that was broken a little bit. It was lying at an angle, so it was lying halfway onto the next white key, and I could see out of the corner of my eye while I was playing. It was disturbing me, that I could see there. The people in the audience were to my right, so there was nobody on this side. But I decided I had to do something about this at the appropriate moment. So I kept playing whatever I was playing, and that moment came. And then I flicked my left hand like that, and that key went flying out because I had to get rid of it. It was just bothering me enough that I couldn't continue with that there, and that's where that thing went, So, so sometimes you run into these things. Oh, another thing, still talking about pianos, but this wasn't a piano. A keyboard is not the same as an electronic piano, as you know. That was what rock bands use, because they don't have all the 88 keys. It's smaller, they don't have a pedal. It's a different thing, and the touch is totally different. The touch is completely different. This was, again, maybe 20 years ago or so, and it was during one of my concerts that I did through U.S. embassies, because I did quite a lot of them between 1984, when I did the first one in Guatemala, and just before the pandemic. And this was in Algeria. About 20 years ago, I think it was. I had 2 regular concerts in Algiers, the capital, and in the city of Constantine, which is the second city. So big theaters, the main theaters in the town. That's what the regular concerts were. But the embassy arranged that in Constantine, they wanted me to go to a local children's cancer hospital and play for the kids. So I went, and there was a person accompanying me. And as we entered the room, I could see everyone's gathered together. There's the kids, the patients, and their parents, the nurses, so they're all there. And so I'm, of course, curious to find out, what kind of instrument do they have for me there? So we entered the thing. I looked to my right, and I thought, oh, cripey. They brought a keyboard here. This is not a piano. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I can do with this thing. This is, I can play with something on this thing. Well, I thought very quickly, and I played for them that Beethoven bagatelle, that famous one, Furides, which everyone knows. And the reason I could do it was because I could keep it confined into that limited area. Of course, no pedal. I had to stand up, to do it. Well, they loved it and everything, but they thought, well, it has keys. It's a kind of must be a piano of some kind. Well, a keyboard is not a piano. I mean, an electronic piano like a Roland, a Casio, a Yamaha Clavinova, that's fine. I can use those. But that's not a keyboard. It feels different. It's a whole different touch. It's not the same instrument at all. At least they didn't say, well, we have an accordion here. Well, it has keys. Say if you can use that. We didn't quite go that far. But it happened one more time that I had played on a keyboard, but I already knew what I was doing. And it was actually on the island of Saipan, which, by the way, I'm going to again in about next Sunday, 23rd. I'm going for 2 weeks, for my usual 2 weeks there, to do 3 regular concerts and several short ones in local schools. Well, in one of the high schools, there wasn't actually an electronic piano that was not functional for some reason. It was an electrical problem, It was a kind of thing you played one note and the next one sounded with it, so it was totally useless until that electrical problem was fixed. So the only thing they had was a keyboard. But having done this in Algeria, and I was playing with students, I said to myself, well, I'll see if I can manage a couple things with this. But I had to explain to the students, this is not a piano. This is going to have a clattering sound, totally different sound. And it's a limited, the amount of keys are limited. So I'll do what I can, but I had to explain to them what it was. So I managed to play 3 or 4 short things on it, and it somehow worked. So that was the only other time that I ever was in a situation like that. But it would only be in a situation like that I would even consider that, in the future. I would never do that in a public concert. So these are just a few little vignettes, you might say, from pianos that I have encountered, and I'm sure I'll think of something else. And maybe
what about memory slips?
Oh, well, yeah. So let me say something else first, and then I'll get to that.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me of that. This is about where I was to be soloist with an orchestra, a fairly major orchestra, and ended up playing what I didn't think I was supposed to be playing. This happened in the 1980s. I think it was 85 or something like that. And this was the Singapore Symphony. One of my favorite cities, by the way, in Asia. I really, really, really enjoyed it several times I've been in Singapore, and I've played a couple of recitals. Well, I was engaged to play the Gershwin Concerto in F with the Singapore Symphony in a Family Day concert. Now, Gershwin wrote, the Rhapsody in Blue, of course, is his most famous piece for piano and orchestra, or really piano and band is what it originally is, but it's sung with piano and orchestra, and I've done it. It's in 1 movement. And the Concerto in F is in 3 movements. So I learned, I hadn't played the Concerto in F before. No, I had one on one of previous occasions. So I brought it back. That's right. I brought it back, and there it was. So I was going to be playing the Concerto in F by Gershwin with the Singapore Symphony. So when I arrived, a day or 2 before, I remember walking by the theater, Victoria Memorial Hall is what it's called, an older theater. I just was curious to see what kind of, posters they had there, things like that. So I wandered by there, and I looked at the thing, and I said, what? It says I'm playing the Rhapsody in Blue. Excuse me, I'm supposed to be playing the Concerto in F. What's going on here? Well, it so happened that 2 weeks earlier, I had actually played the Rhapsody Blue. It was actually here locally again at the Dana School of Music here at YSU. So it was still in my fingers. But I came to the rehearsal the next day and was wondering what's going on. What are they going to start with? And so they started with the familiar clarinet, the ascending clarinet. So it's going to be Rhapsody in Blue. But the contract said I'm playing the Concerto in F. Well, I didn't say anything because it was in my fingers. It was their mistake. Now, had I not had the Rhapsody in Blue in my fingers, I would have shown the crowd, hey, listen, excuse me, we're supposed to be playing the Concerto in F here. So I let it go, because I had it in my fingers. I played the Rhapsody in Blue 2 weeks earlier. And they never knew that they had made a mistake, They'd intended Rhapsody in Blue all along, but somebody made a mistake and sent me the invitation, the contract, to do the Concerto in F. Now, a couple of years later, I was to do the Concerto in F again, actually in Ukraine, in Lviv, with the orchestra in Lviv, the major city, the important city of Western Ukraine. And there was a guest conductor, actually also of Ukrainian background, from here, from the U.S., was going to be the conductor. I don't know what happened. There was something where there may be mixed up with the scores that he brought, but we didn't end up doing the Concerto in F. In fact, I ended up doing a recital. There was something that he didn't have the score. So here it is. I brought back the Concerto in F for the second time, and then again ended up not playing it. There must be some kind of a jinx with that piece or something. Twice, this happened with that piece, So I don't know, but. That's the true story. I hope it doesn't happen again. But I've heard stories by other pianists. They sat down in like a Mozart concerto, and it wasn't the one they thought they were playing. Somebody had mixed up something, along the way, and then they had to sort that out somehow. So I hope it doesn't happen again if I'm playing something with Russia. Now, what you brought up, this was about the memory thing. I have a very, very reliable memory system, which I talked about on an earlier talk. If you go, you go to some of the earlier postings, talk about my memorization practicing methods, and it's very, very reliable. People are always asking me, says, how do you remember all that? Sometimes I'll say, how do you know I'm not making it up as I go along? We have a little chuckle about that. But I do have a reliable system. Well, of course, we're all humans. We're not machines. The greatest artists sometimes, slip up on something. It's not just musicians. I mean, actors blow their lines, opera singers forget something. This is just the human aspect of things. But this happened also in the 70s. This was in Poland, in Warsaw. I think it was at the time that I was recording those Liszt 12 Transcendental Etudes for the Polish record company Polskie Nagrania, which I made a two, that was LPs then, a 2-record album of that, and 4 other Liszt etudes to round up, because you had to just finish out a side. And I had a recital in Warsaw, and I remember that the program was Mozart and Liszt, so I guess Liszt must have been playing those etudes or some of those. I don't remember all the Mozart that I played, but I remember, starting with the Fantasia in C minor, K475, which starts out very slowly, and that was the first piece, So I started, when I got to about the second or third measure, it goes into a little modulation, but I went so awry there, I didn't believe what I played there. Completely different. What the hell did I do? So I had to start again. And the damn thing happened again. You wouldn't believe how embarrassed, I was at the time. What the hell is going on here? I remember looking at the audience, and I said, in Polish, it was that Polish word, przepraszam, which means, excuse me. I turned back, I looked at the piano, the keys. I sat for about a minute or so, thinking. Started again, was fine. The rest of the concert was fine. The one and only time it ever happened to me in all these many years of me playing that I actually stopped dead and so on. But this happens to the greatest artists, sometimes, rarely, but it does. My father mentioned to me once, the great pianist Arthur Schnabel, who was the foremost Beethoven pianist of his time, and actually one of my father's piano professors in Berlin in the early 1920s. When he was already in this country, he was doing a radio broadcast, a live radio broadcast, coast to coast, national thing. I think he was playing a Schubert sonata or something. And something happened, and he said to the microphone, "I'm sorry, I forgot." So somebody from, in the room had the music score, put it in front of him, and he was able to restart and then finish it. I mean, a great artist like that, it happens. It happens, others too, mess up sometimes. So we're all human. But at least I have a system that has been very reliable, for me for, a lot of years like that. So that's, about what you mentioned. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today, because there'll be other topics I'll think about, later on, is to talk about the International Leventritt competition, which was from 1940 until somewhere in the late 80s, I think it was. It was the most prestigious international competition for both pianists and violinists in the USA. It alternated between piano and violin. People like Van Cliburn, who was one of the winners in the piano area. Itzhak Perlman, the violinist, he was a winner also of the Leventritt. And I was a second prize winner with two others in 1965 of that. But it started in 1940. It was supported by a foundation. I remember Edgar M. Leventritt Foundation that supported that. And they provided the fees and so on. So if you were even a second prize winner, you also got 3 years of management and concerts, and so that's what I had. And in those times, most of the concerts were here in the USA, but there were several in Canada also. I had about 75 concerts, through that, as a result of that. But let me add something else. Because the next competition was the first time, it was the violin one, was the first time that they had actually two first prize winners, which they hadn't had before. Those of us who were under the management of the foundation, like me, were asked to stay on for another year. So actually I got 4 years of management out of that, rather than 3. And so like I say, I got about 75 concerts out of that. There were 3 rounds, which many competitions have, and I remember, whatever I played in the second round, and the third round was going to be, you played a concerto, but it was on the stage of Carnegie Hall, actually, with second piano, not with orchestra. I remember that what I did was a rarely played piece by Richard Strauss. He's a composer who's came after Wagner, considered the foremost German opera and symphonic composer after Wagner, so turn of the 20th century. Very complex music. No relation to Johann Strauss, the one who wrote the Blue Danube and the other waltzes, Richard Strauss. And it's an early work of his called Burlesque. So in German would be spelled Burleske, Burlesque in D minor, one movement. So I played that in finals. But the thing is, that was when I got to the finals, because I didn't know I was going to do that. I remember at the same time that this was going on, I was practicing for another concert that I had with the Bucks County Symphony Orchestra in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. That I was supposed to play the Liszt Concerto No. 2 in A major. And I remember being in the practice room in Juilliard, working on that. And okay, I played the first round of Leventritt, played the second round, and so I didn't know yet what was happening for, was I going to advance or not? And I remember when it came, after I did the second round. So I hadn't heard anything. And my brother Dorian, who was really studying also at Juilliard, he came into my practice room with a very long face. I thought to myself, well, I didn't get into the finals. As it is, And he said, I'm sorry, but you're in the finals. He heard something, and I said, oh, well, gee, great, but now I have to drop working on the Liszt concerto, to concentrate on this burlesque, for the finals. So that's how that happened. There was a very, blue panel set of judges, for that. and as I say, it was for both pianists and violinists. It was sort of the foremost one. I also got my first university position because of that. Because the School of Music at Indiana University in Bloomington had asked the foundation, they were looking for someone to be part of the piano faculty, and they asked whether any of us was available, and I was. And that's how that came, into being. So the 4 years I was there coincided with the exact 4 years that I had that management, that I had those 75 concerts. So exactly 1966 to 70, those are the years. And then from that was a connection to a European manager that I had for a while in Holland, and so I can trace things directly or indirectly from the Leventritt, over a good number of years. Now, and one of my colleagues actually at Indiana University, at the School of Music, was a man named Sidney Foster. He was the winner of the very first Leventritt in 1940. He was very nice to me, because remember, I was a new professor there and everything. He was very nice to me. But so there was that connection, just two colleagues, being on the faculty. Now the Leventritt, I don't know why it went out of existence. Perhaps the money ran out. Perhaps other reasons came into the picture. So that competition doesn't exist anymore. But winning that kind of product, I was second prize winner, as I said, with two others. And the prestige that competition had. This would have been like equivalent to, let's say, if I had been a tennis player, if I would have been runner-up in the Davis Cup, or if I were a golfer, I would have been runner-up in the Masters in Augusta, Georgia, in that big golf tournament, because it had that kind of reputation among pianists and violinists. Now the big competition that we have here in the U.S. for pianists is the Van Cliburn one in Fort Worth, Texas, which is every 4 years. So that is now the one that exists. The Leventritt doesn't exist anymore, but it was around for over 40, 45 years or something. So 1965 was my year. And I had just finished Juilliard. It was just after I got out of Juilliard. So anyways, these are the things I just wanted to talk to you about today. There'll be other things, and we'll have another talk a little bit further down the road. Before I go to Saipan on next Sunday in a week, I'll probably play at least one or two more things that we'll put on the channel. So keep watching it, and tell your friends, and I hope that there'll be more subscribers, and I hope you enjoyed my rambling today, telling you about a few things. And I see that the outside is getting to be really nice, although our power is still out here. And
apologies for the wiggly video. I'm sitting here holding the iPhone.
Suzanne's holding the phone here. When I'm playing downstairs, it's on a stand. But yeah, I'm sure it has come out okay, and it will come out okay. Now we'll have to wait until the power gets on to actually get it posted, but that shouldn't take too long. So anyways, wishing you all a good day, and enjoy whatever you're doing for the rest of the day. Okay? Till the next time.